Hey, so here we go, a new video from Bikotic. It's been a very long time, sorry about that. Arriba! So, let's look at some bikes. Let's imagine that one morning you wake up and you think to yourself, I quite fancy getting a nice S-Works Tarmac SL6, and because I'm feeling quite flush, I get myself a nice S-Works Venge as well. A hacksaw, some glue and a bit of tape. Basically chop the front off the Tarmac, stitch on the front of the Venge. A little bit of glue, line it up, Bob's your uncle. Now you've got yourself a nice lightweight all-round race bike with some nice aero features and an integrated cockpit. Seems like a pretty cool idea to me. And let's call it the Tarmenge, shall we? Perfect. I suspect Specialized have this on their drawing board right now and will be releasing it next year. We'll have to wait and see. Anyhow, if you don't happen to have that amount of money lying around and don't trust superglue, then there are some manufacturers who have stepped up to the plate with this type of concept, and that's what we're going to look at today in this video. First bike up that we're going to have a quick look at is the Scott Addict RC Premium, and if you watch a bit of the racing you'll have seen some of the Mitchelton Scott riders racing on this, and it looks pretty cool. It's basically their lightweight climbing bike except with an integrated cockpit and the sort of aero tubing. I like this green colour as well. Not cheap, weight wise pretty good, 7.12 kilograms. With my new way of lining up the bikes I'm able to work out what size the frame is that they've photographed, and in this case it's the medium 54, and in this particular case it's obviously Shimano Dura Ace Di2 with the disc brakes. All these bikes that we're looking at are going to have disc brakes today. So if you look on the Scott website, they've got some promotional pictures which show the frame has got aero tubing. You've got the one-piece integrated handlebar set up with the stem, and all the cables are hidden down, running through the bars and through the front of the headset into the frame. Very clever. However, if you were to put a SRAM ETAP group set on, that would cut out two of the wires, and then if SRAM were to get their act together and actually make us some wireless brakes, then we wouldn't need any cables at all. The job's a good one. Although, how many people would actually trust wireless brakes is, yeah, that's up for debate. Stupid idea. Okay, next bike up is from Focus. It's the IZALCO Max Disc 9.9. Dura Ace Di2 again. Tiny bit cheaper than the Scott. By my calculations, they've photographed the large frame, 7.5 kilo weight, so a little bit heavier. And in fact, by the time you've got pedals and bottle cages and stuff on, you're probably going to be over the 8 kilo mark, which doesn't seem that light really. But it's quite a nice looking bike. All bikes now seem to have the drop seat stays. Obviously the Scott has, and if you compare it to the Tarmac, very similar. Kind of like the way the Tarmac cuts out a bit where the back wheel is. Amazing how the length of the stem and handlebar setup can really change the fit of the bike. So that's the IZALCO in comparison to the Tarmac. Next up we have, it's the Cannondale SUPERSIX EVO High Mod Disc, and this one's coming in more expensive than the Scott by 99p. Do you think they all get together and chat about what prices they're going to have? The SUPERSIX, this is the updated design. They've done away with the old sort of farm gate look that they had before. They've dropped the seat stays, same as everybody these days. Integrated handlebar stem combo and disc brakes obviously. Yeah, it's a nice looking bike. If we compare that to the Tarmac, by my calculations both a frame size of 56, and the Cannondale is remarkably taller, as you can see there. I don't know why they decided to go really tall like that. I'm sure there is a reason. Quite different around the fork area, and in fact the seat stays are even more similar on the Cannondale to the Tarmac than the other two bikes we looked at. Remarkably in line there. The Tarmac actually has quite slim chainstays. The Cannondales look even slimmer, and in fact have this slight curve to them. I guess that's to bring in a bit of comfort. But presumably all these bikes are incredibly rigid around this area in the direction that the power needs to go. Interestingly, if you look at the Scott's chainstays, they're much beefier, much chunkier. So what does that mean? Does that mean that Cannondale and Specialized know something Scott don't and can make theirs much thinner? Or is the Scott much stiffer? Interesting. Most of these bikes are coming in with the same gearing, 5236 with an 1130 on the back, which I guess is about right. I live in the Yorkshire Dales and I prefer to have an 1132 on the back with my 5236. Just that slightly easier gear to get up park rash and big hills like that, which are quite steep. Again, the Cannondale has the integrated cables running down the front of the head tube. Looks kind of similar to the Scott in that respect. There's something I did notice on the Cannondale website when I was lining these up, and I'm guessing it must be a typo, but it's saying that the SUPERSIX EVO wheelbase, that the size 51 has a wheelbase of 99.4, the 54 100.8, and then the 56 99.2, and then back up to 100.5. So this is a bit of an anomaly around here, and I'm assuming it's a typo. Just thought I'd point that out. Okay, so next up, drum roll please. It's the Orbea ORCA OMX M10i Limited -D. I don't know why it has to have such a long, complicated name, but I like this bike. This bike looks nice. I'm digging the paint scheme. Nice colour. The Orbea bikes, you can go on their website and actually choose all the different colours through the system they have there, which is very cool. They've gone for a slightly different approach here on the seat clamp. The bolts on the side of the frame there, which is quite clean, I think. Easy to get your Allen key in. So this is quite a small frame they've photographed here, 53. So obviously when you compare that with the Cannondale SUPERSIX, which is a 56 frame, makes it look enormous. So massive difference there. I got the weight off of Bike Radar, 7.5 kilograms, so I don't know how true that is, because that's actually heavier than the bigger bike. Even though they're very different sizes, this area here is all very much in line. And look how close those seat stays are. All these manufacturers are copying off each other. I think both of these bikes look nice and neat at the front. I like this little bit on the fork they have here. Looks quite neat. If you compare it to the tarmac, again that back end is really similar. The Orbea's forks are pretty deep in comparison to the tarmac. So I'm assuming that's a more aero shape. So one of the design features that Orbea use on their forks is this quite exaggerated curve outwards away from the front wheel, which apparently is good for the wind flow coming through, keeps it nice and clean, which I can appreciate. I think that's good. What does bother me a little bit is I've masked out there the front facing surface of the fork facing the wind, but then also if you mask the quick release for the through axle and the cable for the front disc brake, you actually see that there's quite a lot facing the wind there. And in fact I worked it out, and with that cable and that quick release you've got an extra 9% facing the wind, which is crazy when you consider that, I mean, maybe the racers need a quick release axle, but normal people, it's not a big deal getting an Allen key out of your little toolbox or whatever, because everybody's going to carry one, because you'd be crazy if you didn't, so you don't need that. And then just about every disc bike I've seen has got this cable sitting directly in the wind down to the disc caliper. Surely the design should come out the back of the fork leg and go into the caliper here, out of the wind, and that has got to be something that we see in the future, because, you know, if we go for all this integrated handlebar stuff, leaving this dangling in the wind is a stupid idea. Okay, so that's the Orbea. We've got 3 more of these bikes to get through, so I'm gonna motor on through to the next one, which is the Wilier Zero SLR. Frame size photographed here I've worked out to be a medium, and so far this is the lightest of the bikes. Again, I don't think that's listed on their website. I think I got that from a review that I saw online. This particular model has got a 5034 with an 1130, so slightly easier gearing than the ones we've looked at previously. Something I've not mentioned before is that obviously all these bikes come with tyres, but it does make quite a big difference what tyres the manufacturers put on these bikes when you first buy them. And there's an excellent website called bicyclerolling-resistance.com. They've done a whole load of tests on all the different tyres that you can buy, with the list of rolling resistance on the right. Currently I'm running Grand Prix 5000s with inner tubes, 10 watts of rolling resistance per tyre, whereas I could go for the Vittoria Corsa Speed, but I don't think they have quite such good puncture resistance. So you can go for a faster rolling tyre, but the puncture resistance isn't quite as good. So this particular model here is in a rather lovely red sort of metallic colour. I think that looks pretty cool. So that's comparing it to the Orbea. The Orbea does seem to have slightly deeper Aero tubing, and that's comparing it there to the tarmac. So it's quite a lot lower at the front, much smaller stack height. 536 versus 565. So you're going to be able to get pretty racy on this puppy. Very low stack height. So one thing that really does bother me about the Wilier aesthetically is this horrible little square bit here. Obviously it's for the seat clamp bolt to come down into it, but it looks a bit dire, doesn't it? I really think if you just curved it off like that, work out some other way to do the seat clamp, that is a much tidier looking bike. That really spoils it for me. And it being an Italian brand, I'm surprised that got through the design process. So that's a bit of a shame. What is cool is that the Astana World Tour Pro Team are going to be riding it in 2020. And this is the livery here. And that is a nice looking bike, I think you'd have to admit. Even with the little square. Yep, very tasty. Okay, so we're getting there. Just a couple left to look at. So the manufacturer of the next bike produced this, the Ventum 1, which is a purely triathlon bike. Super aero, but slightly revolting to look at. Kind of looks a bit like a cross between a shopping trolley and a lawnmower. So let's not look at it anymore, and let's have a look at their road bike offering, which is the NS1. This one photographed here I think is a medium, and at first glance, yeah, looks like a pretty cool bike. Personally, I'm never keen when the frame goes back like that behind the seat post. I find that always looks a bit untidy to me. I don't like that. That's only a little thing. Probably the biggest thing that stood out for me on this was the photography's not great, and then it's had some pretty dodgy Photoshop done to it. Weird stuff happening. Don't know what that green line is. So if we compare that to the Wilier, the rear end of the bike is pretty similar. Chainstays are quite a lot fatter on the Ventum. But what does stand out is the front end is sitting up quite a lot straighter on the Ventum here. So there we go. I can't think of anything much more to say about that one. It'll be interesting to see how the reviews come in from actually riding it. I definitely prefer it to their triathlon bike. So then, last but not least, a bike I wanted to have a quick look at was the Colnago V3Rs. That's a little bit more difficult to compare this to the other bikes, as on the whole you would buy it as a frame set, so there's not really any way to compare price and stuff like that. But the concept is the same. Aero tubing, integrated front end. You can just see the cables there underneath, going under this little panel here. The D-shaped seat post. Nice and flush against the back there, I like that. Pro Logo saddle, I always like them, they look cool. And that's just comparing it there against the tarmac. But I actually couldn't find a listing anywhere of the wheelbase of the Colnago, so I'm not entirely sure whether that's a good match up there. But I thought it was worth us having a quick look at that, and you could put it on your shopping list if you're looking for this type of bike. So there we have it. That's what I class as the new breed. It's a lightweight, all-round race bike with aerodynamic tube shapes and an integrated front end with the hidden cables, and I think it's cool. I like it. I bought a new bike and I was caught between whether to buy the lightweight climbing bike or the Aero bike. I prefer the look of the Aero bike. I actually bought a new Aero bike, but given my time again, I would probably go for one of these, because like I say, it's very hilly round here, and my Aero bike, time I got my pedals on and all the bits and bobs, it came in well over 8.5 kilos. I always struggle up the hills, but I think I would have been better off with a more all-round lightweight bike. But I'm going to make a video soon about my new bikes, because I bought two in the end, so keep your eye out for that. So just before we draw this to a close, a new thing I'm going to do on these videos is give you an idea of value. And the idea is to take 10 manufacturers, and for the class of bike that we're looking at is to get the price for each of these models and work out what the average price is for this genre of bike that you might be purchasing. So in this instance, the SUPERSIX EVO, the Addict RC, the ORCA are in the list, the Tarmac, the Team Machine, the Amonda, they all come with Dura Ace Di2. The Team Machine and Tarmac are the two most expensive ones. Outstandingly cheap is the Rose X-Lite 6 disc, which has Dura Ace Di2 and is coming in way cheaper than the Tarmac. But if you add all those together and you come up with an average, that is the price there that you come up with. So if you're paying more than that for a Di2 bike, then you know you're paying above the odds, and if you're paying less than that, you're getting a bargain. The Rose, the Canyon, the Merida, the Orbea in fact, are good buys, I think. Amazingly, on the UK website, I could not find a giant TCR with Dura Ace Di2, so it's actually only 9 manufacturers in this value list. So there we go, that's looking at the value of these bikes. If I happen to have this amount of money to spend on a bike, which I don't because these are all way out of my price range, I actually think I'd go for the Orbea. I like the Orbea. I think it's a good looking bike. I like the fact that I can choose the colours on it. I like the fact that it looks pretty aero, and just because I like messing about with things, I looked at this and thought, yeah, I do like it. But what I think would be cool would be to take this stem and handlebar combo from the Trek Madone, because this I think is a super cool looking bike. So what I did was I took that off the Trek Madone and stuck it on the Orbea. I think that looks a bit more aggressive there, so I like that. I also don't like this saddle very much. I think it's probably a Cella Talia, is it? Something like that, but I don't really like the shape. So I've actually taken the saddle off the Tarmac, and in fact the seat post as well, because it fitted absolutely exactly there. And I've popped that on. I think that looks better. And then I'm not a big fan of Mavic wheels or Mavic tyres, so I've replaced those with the Roval 50s, I think they are, CLXs. And the Specialized turbo tyres with the tan walls, which are rather tasty. So there we go. That bike would, yeah, I'd be pretty happy with that. Probably in a slightly bigger frame, 56. If you like this video, do me a favour and give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel. I'd really like to grow the channel, and my sappy idea is that one day manufacturers will send me these bikes to actually do full reviews on, and then I can do my own photography on them and not just do the side view. I'll be able to compare them from all different views. So that's what I'd really like to do, but I need a lot more subscribers, and eventually one day the manufacturers will start talking to me. So that's my little dream. If you could subscribe, that'd be great. Oh, and the other thing, I'd quite like to do some more shout out videos, so if you have any bikes that you want to compare, stick them in a comment down below and I will see what I can do.